Good morning, I'm Agostino Bruzzone, very glad to be here. I would like to thank the organization to give me this opportunity. Today I will talk to you about business renaissance. That is a great opportunity after this crisis to make a restart from everything. Let me talk a little bit about what are the opportunity, the situation. If we look back at this video with this picture where we have all the robots, even an old video game, this date back almost 30 years ago. There was the old Wolfenstein. Nowadays, we have games that are very realistic. We have additive manufacturing. We have autonomous system. A lot of new technology that could be very revolutionary. And this is a great opportunity for us. Modern simulation has improved a lot since the beginning. What are the opportunity for industry to be more effective, as well as artificial intelligence to support decision and so on. And this is a very important aspect that we can have. But if we look forward, considering what are the aspects related to the environmental condition, we have even big challenge. This challenge involve risk like from terrorism, from accident, and from the strong connection between towns and production facility. Along the pandemics, we experienced a major crisis that was always studied by us as scientists, but nobody expected really. And we discovered a lot of issues. We discovered that epidemics was going as it was gone before, at least in Europe. We had no such experience before respect to Asia, but we don't apply really all the information. And even if we look to the current situation, the world demonstrates to have a capability to evolve, but with different aspect, different criticalities, as well as different opportunity, because different area have a different trend, as you can see from this graph. If we look about what happened through the pandemic bomb, there was a lot of situation where there was a drastic impact on productivity, on revenues, but even many sector was reacting. No, from one pharmaceutics, obviously, but not only pharmaceutics. If we think about, for instance, pet food was increasing, to mention something was not expected, and this is something where we have to be ready to face the challenge that we have. This challenge become even more and more challenging because in the future the towns are growing. We expect to have more and more mega cities, city with more than 10 million people all around the globe. This introduced challenge. This introduced a strong connection between production, distribution, challenge, and final users. The crisis of COVID, they point out even aspect they was ignoring. For instance, this is graph that extracted from apples represent a large quantity in Europe of user, show us people was moving before, during the first wave, second wave, etc. There is not really one first wave, obviously, being a globalized world, everybody travel everywhere. And this demonstrates there is a dynamic response in different parts of the world, from New York City, Singapore, Mexico City, Pisa, etc. And we discover even that we can adapt to different way to work. For instance, to live without using too much public transportation and operate from home with smart working. This was something that was possible 20 years ago, maybe even 25, etc., but was really pushed up by the COVID crisis. It changed even the distribution chain for retails, etc. This is something very interesting. If you take a look on the behavior about flights, transportations, there was something that is able to recover, something that is still down because people are scared, because there is inertia, etc. And we have to think about the renaissance after the crisis. The renaissance after the crisis means that maybe you will have to consider that even the lifestyle will change. Now, a lot of mega corporation was expecting to use smart work 1-2 days per week, but was not really happening up to the COVID to have it on place. This was really drastical impact of COVID. We don't have to over-evaluate. What was drastic? Let's say that if we compare with the First World War, in Italy, we have casualty corresponding to Verdun, First World War, and we have casualty even that was corresponding to the Battle of England during Second War in terms of damage to UK. We should fear that, no, but we should be cautious. What I mean, if we look to some statistics in Italy, and all the data are not reliable for national security reasons in many aspects, for sure we can realize that the impact of COVID in terms of lethality, for instance, in my country, in Italy, was just 60% more, or or 6 times more, depending on the period, of car accident. So what we have to do, we learned a lot. We learned that we need a simple solution, we need a reliable solution, we need to manage communication, etc. Let me point out a case that is interesting about how this impact with manufacturing and industrial ecology. This is about this transparency show up the list of first ports up before the crisis. Tianjin is from the major port south of Beijing. It was very committed with Italy. You know that Italy was present there, was the 9th port worldwide. And in Tianjin, I was there just a year after it happened. There was a huge explosion in 2015. There was 800 tons of nitrated ammonium, something almost 1/3 of a nuclear tiny explosion, and create a huge crater, $9 billion damage. It was in the port. It was a huge impact all around. But in Beirut, after 5 years, we have an explosion even worse, with 300,000 of homeless within few hours. In Beirut port, it was exactly the same material, different cause, but being the port inside the living area, they're disruptive. In 5 minutes, we lose 300,000 people lose their house. And this is not just about explosion. This is the case of Suez, maybe you remember. In Suez, just the end of last year, we have a blockage, we have a jam for one single ship that blocked the new channel, and it was resulting in billion-dollar damage within just few weeks, blocking all the traffic to Europe. That is coming obviously mostly from Asia and crossed by Singapore. So you will say it's a problem of channel? Not really, not really. This is the situation in Yantian Port, China, that is going. It was very hard up to a few weeks ago. It was in June, we had over 300,000 container blocked, and even now there are still a queue of ships that have to solve. What we have to do to solve this problem? We have to rethink. We have to adopt new model, new solutions, such the concept of digital twin. We want to have a manufacturing, a supply chain, a distribution, a service should be based on the use that we can have by the possibility to reproduce model, feed the huge quantity of data that we take from the IoT, and support them for decisions. Obviously, this is an important aspect. Virtual and augmented reality can make it more easy for us to understand these complex scenarios, but we need even to rethink the product, rethink the service, invent new solutions. Strategic engineering deal with that. What is strategic engineering? It's a new discipline. It born around 6 years ago in MIT. We started in Genoa 3 years ago, one initiative, quite large, Strategos. We was present in 2019 in Beijing, and even in Singapore and the United States and all around Europe. The concept is we collect all the data, big data from digitalization of company, from IoT, from social, etc. We elaborate by artificial intelligence, we filter, we use to feed model to understand what is going, and then we use simulation to predict what will happen, and we use closed loop to understand what we can do to take what is the impact of decision, alternative decision. If we look into industrial ecology that go from raw material all around to fission, we have many ways to do that. Nowadays, we have addictive manufacturing, changing the concept and criteria behind. We have new ways to deliver and to serve retail, now by drones, but even without by drone, last mile to go in the town and change. We have a challenge to do. Strategos. Strategos was once the general in ancient Greek. And I will use some statement. One is from Sun Tzu, that was one of the major strategists, the Chinese, say the general win the battle, make a lot of computation. The general lose the battle, don't make computation. Now, once it was Abacus, now is modern simulation, strategic engineer. And Socrates was saying that strategos is the art to understand better what was going and what will happen. From this point of view, let me quote other two Italians that was quite famous. Caput Malle was the man in charge of breaking the walls of Jerusalem during the first crusade, the only one that was winning, by changing the ship into war machine. And this was a way to think, and he said that we need a lot of qualified people. And strategos, and another one, Christopher Columbus, he discovered the Americas. He said that as good strategists should even be able to identify what is the goal that you have to use. And let me mention one recent, nowadays, Mayun, they will say that today, if you want to do a great business, you need to solve a social So that means that by strategic engineering, you have to rethink the process and identify how to do. You need innovation, you need technology, you need many aspects, but you need even people. And this is the reason why in Italy we started this kind of initiative. We have a Master of Science, we have a PhD program, we operate in comparison with other universities. We are been probably the first one in Europe, and we are among the first one worldwide. This initiative is going. Currently, we have a strong partnership with many entities. We have major industry, Thales, Leonardo, Ansaldo. We have Accenture and other consulting firms. We have international agencies involved, such as Water Academy, United Nations Cooperating, NATO, and we have even small and medium-sized high-tech technology. So what we can do completely different way. Currently, we have an initiative in offshore and the strategic asset on the sea to rethink how to develop the world plan to construct these huge things that cost over $1 billion, $1.5 billion US dollar. We have even new threat to face, not only at the platform, but for instance, if we talk about the sea, it's not necessary just to make a terrorist attack by UAV, but you can just compromise the load of cargo. And we have even threat in terms of hybrid warfare. We had the case of the pandemics was huge. Just we had done a comparison with our partners in Singapore, in China, in Europe, and obviously cyber layer, real layer, all interact. When you have a complex system that can go from a hive with just bees up to a town or up a manufacturing system or a defense system, you have many elements involved. What is the characteristic of dynamic structure? That sometimes tiny events generate other consequences. This is an example about French Revolution. The cutting the head of the noble in French Revolution cut out the capability of the Navy, French Navy. They was stronger than or almost the same of UK, but after revolution doesn't work. It's just a simple example. We need a solution technological, intuitive, immersive. It should be a way that we can provide decision maker the understanding of the problem and the tool to use. This is one of the stronghold of strategic engineering, to create a link between three major aspects: data analytics that process all, so we make a posteriori analysis; simulation, the look forward using data from data analytics; AI, artificial intelligence, that support us in filtering; and the feedback from the real field, from the IoT, from all the big data, to understand what is going, and providing them to decision maker. Decision maker is a very critical role. We have always to keep in our mind the decision maker attitude is that one that decide what to do. We should be able to provide him all the information to take the right choice. And our decision maker should be able, as Caput Malley that I mentioned before, this hero of the old medieval time, he was one of the leader of Genoa, have to have the capability to identify his own goal, to change, etc. And obviously we have different tools. Sometimes it could be very easy as a game theorist, hierarchical tree that with risk analysis. Sometimes should be more sophisticated using artificial intelligence and simulation combined together. Let me point out, even simulation from this point of view should evolve, should be more lean, more quick in providing answer, because we cannot take months. For this is a project we have done with Mexico about manufacturing using a new protocol to implement modeling simulation. Another aspect is the necessity to connect the huge quantity of data all together to create a framework where people could cooperate in a distributed environment supported by AI, and even to use new solutions to face the problem, because we have a new challenge. We should have a new tool. This is an example of a project we are doing in ports that allow to immerse people by augmented reality, in this case HoloLens. So you look at the old map, so you take an old nautical map and you see what are the consequences of different choice, movement, or for instance, risk of the domino effect of explosion inside a tank farm on the port, for instance, for chemical storage. And obviously you have augmented reality, you have virtual reality, you have extended reality that combine all together. It's very important to do something that is not just for the lab, but should be intuitive, immersive, that make it easy for a decision maker to take an example. If we talk about ports, we can have good cases to analyze in this sense. So let me consider one case that is the marine, and marine is a very, very important layer in the sector of supply chain. T-Rex is a project we carried out in order to analyze the strategic solution for supply chain, water management, water cleaning, and desalination cleaning and distribution, and even chemical terminal, chemical productivity. It is a port that is connected to a network of 5, let me say, fictional towns in the desertic area. You have all these realities that interact. You have the cyber layer that is coupled with the real layer, and we can analyze what could go. So we can introduce not only traditional asset, but even new asset based on autonomous system, identify how to predict. We have done simulation to protect that against attack. By the way, the attack we simulated in 2015 was carried out in 2019, blocking have an impact on Aramco, the major company, Saudi and US company, that impacted for over 10%. So demonstration that this technology can be used to predict what will happen, what could be the consequence. And we analyze not only the effect on the real asset, but the connection between real asset and cyber one, because in this case, confidentiality, integrity, availability, privacy can all be affected by this aspect. And obviously, we don't have just the cyber, let me say, ICT element, but we have even the social network, because in some framework, social network is the way to understand how the consumer react, how the consumer act, what will happen. This vice versa that is showing now here is the virtual lab that we created for port design, for improving efficiency, safety, and security, that can work from a smartphone. So you just use a smartphone when you take your decision to educate, to diffuse information, to very advanced solution that could be very immersive or even proactive in providing you solution. In this scenario, you need artificial intelligence, because this scenario have many players. You cannot play with people. You need to have a entity that substituted the decision of humans and this kind of behavior. And you can use extended reality to make it understandable. This huge amount of data, by the way, is not too much the data, because the data are a mess. Is the capability to extract from the data the added value that come out in terms of information by using data analytics, artificial intelligence. And then it can be used to take critical decision, how to organize the cyber layer, how to protect the cyber, physical, etc. This is a set of cases where the same system was running on a smartphone. It was even running on a platform that is an immersive cube we call Spider, 2 meter by 2 meter by 2 meter 0.5. You can enter, you can manage a remote entities, supervised maintenance, so on. This is another case where we was doing simulation of steel manufacturing. Currently, we have an initiative on green steel that is devoted to think new way to produce steel in ecological way, and that's very important, because in Europe could be the way to make a business. This is about simulation of hollow glass production. This is a real virtual digital twin that reproduces the plant with the behavior, and you can use for training, you can use for rethinking the process, etc. It's not just to produce, it's not just the port, but even the whole supply chain can be used to support strategic decision making that are not at once, but are ongoing continuously due to the nature of the system. Let me make another example. This is a classical automated line that is related to a bottling line. For instance, this was, I feel, about mineral water, but could be sodas or whatever. All these elements represent entities that have a digital twin that are coupled all together in a simulation model. This simulation model could be used to support analysis of where is criticality, making proposal to the customer, because usually you don't redesign everything, but you define what machine to substitute. Maybe the customer want to keep an old machine, or would like to know how much reliable is the plant, or what is the maximum capability. We are doing that. Currently, we have another project pretty similar conceptually, but it's not about bottling line. The new one that we are doing is about shoes making for ladies. So quite luxury shoes in Italy, in Tuscany, to reorganize the supply chain, the outsourcing, the rail production. Let me take an example. This is an example about chemical production. So ethylene, for instance, quite dangerous material, not very huge quantity, but quite strategic for many production. And this is the case where we can have a very simple problem. So it's a supply chain, but in this supply chain, we take the simplest model as possible, just to plant with their tank, with their connection to the sea, using time charter ships that go one side from the export to the import port and come back and feed up the port. If we analyze the model deterministically, we can solve by Excel. It's very easy, very simple. Two plants, some ship moving back and forward. We can identify how many ship, what is the best contract, what is the size of the ship, etc. Let's consider stochastic element. You can have a delay on ship travels, so that could make not homogeneous the distance. We can have different in the production, so the plant could have some downtime, maybe not blocking, but reducing the efficiency, and maybe at the same time can have even overproduction in some moment, but not necessarily able to compensate, because this is a very simple echelon of a supply chain that cannot be totally solved. Think about the new model when we maybe will have to travel north of Eurasian continent. This is the behavior if the regime turned to be stochastic. As you can see, it's not so much pure. You cannot more analyze by an analytical model, not even statistical models. You need to create real simulations that could allow you to evaluate ship waiting time and the mutual interference between the ship. And as you can see, if you increase the number of ship, this increase. At the same time, the risk to have block on the production that could have a huge impact in terms of cost for the chemical plant. The only way to do simulation. This is a simulation we developed some years ago for the major Italian petrochemical company, for the chemical division of that. And WT should be combined with other systems based on strategic engineering to support decisions that are multiple decisions in this case, because the basic decision is to decide the contract of the ship for the next year. So once a year may be refined. But then you have the strategic, even more decision to revamp some pier, some port terminal, or the short-term decision to decide, okay, Shell or Exxon is calling me. They want to have some additional, or some BASF is asking me some additional load. Can I do without breaking my own production flow? How can I compensate? What is the best solution? Obviously, we need a lot of data for doing that, but this data should be analyzed and filtered by AI and data analytics, feed and simulation to look forward. Because the problem with data analytics is just tell me what happened in the past. But if I need to take a decision now, I need to predict what will be the impact on the future. So this gives you an understanding on the importance of strategic engineering and of the potential of using that to analyze both risk as well as opportunity, transforming all these elements in opportunity. And I will be able to answer your question. In case, please just you can contact me to my reference that are available in over here, and so you can be free. And we were interested in extending our network of cooperation with other universities, with other centers all around the globe. We have a good connection. Professor Lin Zhang in Beiyang University. We have connection with any place around the world, from Latin America, North America, China, Asia, India, Africa, and all around Europe. Simulation team, in fact, at the time represent as a president, is a network that involves many centers and many even spin-off company of the university, many university. We cooperate all together, and for sure strategic engineering is a great opportunity. Thank you very much. And ciao dall'Italia.